Welcome to this week's edition of Hockey Unfiltered with Ken Campbell. I am Dylan Waugh. I am the sidekick to Ken. I am the Tommy Chong to Ken's Cheech. Today we're going to be talking about the Boston Bruins. We're going to be talking about the Nashville Predators and the U18s. But most importantly, stick around because we're going to be chatting with Don Waddell of the Carolina Hurricanes. So that's going to be pretty good. So I'll tell you what happened, Ken. I realized that I did not have time to give our Twitter handles, so I just decided to go for, I called an audible, if you will. Okay. And I went with the Curb Your Enthusiasm. Pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You're not a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan?
Yeah, I've watched it a few times, but yeah. It probably is a carryover from the fact that I think that Seinfeld's one of the most overrated shows in the history of television.
So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Wow.
And Curb Your Enthusiasm is like...
And now I'm not saying Seinfeld sucks. I'm not saying that. So people don't think I think that Seinfeld sucks. I think it's good.
Yeah.
I never thought it was what other people, the brilliant piece of art that other people thought it was.
I always say that Seinfeld is more fun to talk about than to actually watch.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so, because they do a lot of a lot of pop culture references came from Seinfeld.
Yeah.
The double dipper.
Yeah.
The low talker. A lot of these things came from Seinfeld. But Curb Your Enthusiasm, I think that's brilliant. I think that show is just incredibly brilliant. But anyways, we should probably move on to hockey.
We should. And
before we do, we should remind people that we're currently members of the Hockey Podcast Network. Yes. And you can currently find Ken's writing specifically at kencampbell.substack.com.
Correct.
And if you're currently listening to this or watching this, you should leave a review or a rating.
Absolutely. Only if it's good, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously. Yeah. That's how we know if somebody's opinion matters.
Right. Whether or not they agree with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds good.
I don't think that we agree with us.
Wow, I'm looking at Daily Face-Off. I'm looking at their I'm looking at the Boston Bruins.
Yeah,
and they have they're injured. They have the lines and then the injured list, and they got the pictures of the guys' sweaters and everything. They just just as I was looking, one just disappeared. Oh, so that means the guy's not hurt anymore. It was that guy that they brought up it wasn't Froden. I can't remember. Oh, it's Hampus. No, it's not Hampus Lindholm. I don't know who it is, but somebody that was day to day just disappeared. So now that somebody's healthy for the Boston Bruins, and I'm not sure who it is.
So should we chat about the Boston Bruins then? Is that your sheepish way of saying, hey Dylan, shut up about Curb Your Enthusiasm. We're moving on to the Boston Bruins. Last week, you and Jeff Merrick, and I forget what your team was, but Jeff Merrick said it was the Pittsburgh Penguins. You both talked about teams that you constantly are predicting to be bad,
right,
and never become bad. And for me, that's the Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
3 years in a row, I predicted them to fall off a cliff. And, this year it was obvious. David Krejci gone. So your second line center has a huge hole. Your defense weak behind Charlie McAvoy. And Tuukka Rask, your franchise goaltender, gone. So this year I thought, this is the year. This is the year Boston's going to be bad and my prediction comes true. I was wrong.
Yep.
So as it stands now, it looks like the Bruins are destined to face Don Waddell's team.
Yeah.
It could change
unless the
15
Rangers,
minutes.
Unless the Rangers catch Carolina.
Yeah, it could change any minute now. But as it stands now, looks like they're going to face, once again, we have the storyline of a skilled team in the Carolina Hurricanes going up against the Bruisers. How do you envision a series like that going?
See, I don't see the Boston Bruins as a particularly bruising team.
Okay, so how would you define a bruising team? Because this begs a more interesting
Washington's
question.
a bruising team.
Okay, but how would you define it?
A team that's heavy.
Okay.
You talk about a heavy team, like a team that's heavy and plays a heavy game.
Yeah.
Cycles the puck a lot in the offensive zone. Creates a lot of their chances off of physical play.
Yeah.
Is really just a biatch to play against, because it's a grind all the time. I don't know. I mean, I don't see the Bruins as that.
I have a more broad definition than you.
Okay.
And that is the last thing you said, which is just a team that's miserable to play against.
Yeah.
And Charlie McAvoy and Brad Marchand and, to a less dirty but still physical extent, Patrice Bergeron, these are guys that make you pay for having the audacity to want to play hockey against them. Right. And so that's why I say that they're a bruising team, is because I mean that in just the most literal sense. I think you're right in a more specific, like the heavy cycle and stuff like that is kind of a hallmark of like the LA Kings. Yeah. Right. From their glory years. But I look at the Boston Bruins as just a team that, they're going to pull every dirty trick in the book that they can, and I'm not complaining about that. It's, you play to you take the leeway that the refs will give you in the playoffs, right? But I look at them as a team that really knows how to use those things.
Well, yeah, because they're a veteran team and they've been there before and they've had some long playoff runs, so they know what style it takes to succeed in the playoffs.
Yeah,
but to me, I think the Boston Bruins. I mean, there's several areas, and most of them are right up the middle of the ice, where the Bruins have been very good this year.
Yeah,
starting in goal.
Yeah,
I mean, Jeremy Swayman has come in, and like it's funny because I think there are fans in some markets that go, "Oh, come on, seriously?"
Yeah,
like Henrik Lundqvist retires, and then Igor Shesterkin comes in.
Yeah.
Tuukka Rask retires and Jeremy Swayman just picks it up, and Linus Ullmark to maybe a little lesser extent, but they've actually shared the workload pretty evenly.
Yeah.
But like to not have to worry about goaltending, like for as much as we talk about, there's so many goalies out there and don't overspend on it, like to not ever have to worry about it is huge. And the Bruins haven't had to worry about goaltending this year. Charlie McAvoy is having arguably a sneaky, quiet Norris Trophy season.
I mean, if it wasn't for Roman Josi,
and Kel Makar and Victor Hedman and a lot of the other guys, but he's right, he's there. Like he's been so excellent for them. And I think down the middle, I think the two like huge contributors to a lot of this are Charlie Coyle and Eric Holla, who have been very, very good this year. Like Charlie Coyle's been terrific for them this year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, as much as they miss Krejci, I think he's done an excellent job of coming in and filling that void on their second line.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a good player. He's just a good, honest player who plays a really good, honest 200-foot game. He might not score tons, but when he does, they're big goals. They're important goals, and I just think those two guys have picked up down the middle on that team where maybe people thought there might be a lot of question marks. I think those guys have really answered the bell, and they've been terrific this year.
Especially with Charlie Coyle, I was starting to think that he just was what he was. He came over from Minnesota. Yeah. He came over from Minnesota, and I remember liking that trade and thinking that Charlie Coyle was exactly the kind of, guy that the Bruins needed. He wasn't a prospect at the time, but he was young enough that he probably was going to develop a little bit, right? But I guess I just thought that from last year, well, this is what Charlie Coyle is. Don't expect more from him, which was a good third line winger.
Yeah.
Which, no disrespect to a good third line winger, it's not a game-breaking talent, right? Mm-hmm. And Charlie Coyle, you're right. He is a huge reason as to why my prediction has gone wrong. Jeremy Swayman is a huge reason as to why my prediction has gone wrong. And to your point about goaltending and people being pissed off, it's almost like there's more to goaltending than just the goalie themselves.
Right.
It's almost like the defense plays a part.
Yeah.
It's almost like the goalie coach plays a part. It's almost like the goalie coach and their ability to work with the defensive coordinator to create a system that works for both goalie and defense and exploits all of their strengths while covering their weaknesses of both the defense and the goalies plays a huge part. Which I just said to you off the air that my hot take is I think Ilya Sorokin's the most overrated goalie in the league right now.
Okay.
So there's my part of that. But yeah, like, I mean, you're right. Like, by the way, that I don't think that has anything to do with Igor Shesterkin. He's just single-handedly just walked in and said, yeah, I'll be good.
Yeah.
Maybe great.
Yeah. I've been good. I've been the best goalie in the KHL, and
yeah,
I'll come over and I can be the best goalie in this league too.
The NHL, it's like a 1-to-1, kind of step over. Yeah. So, the Boston Bruins they're looking good, and they are a team that, especially in the playoffs, they make you pay for having the audacity of playing against them.
Yeah, and I think too, I just, I think they know that really in the Eastern Conference, like, you say every year, oh, just get in and anything can happen. And usually it's not true. Like, usually you don't just get in and you can win. Like, you can get in and maybe win a round or two, or in the case of the Montreal Canadiens, 3. Yeah. But at some point, the cold water hits you right in the face, right?
Yeah.
But I think this team realizes, get in this conference.
Yeah.
As we're going to be talking to Don Waddell later, and I mean, his team's right in the thick of that, right? I mean, his team was, for the longest time, we thought they were going to win that division. We thought they were going to win the Metropolitan Division. Well,
hands down.
Yeah. And now the New York Rangers are right there. Same number of games, same number of points. I think they play one more time between each other. I think they have a game next week. So, I mean, really in the East, it really is just make it. And I mean, would anybody be surprised if Boston went on a heater in the playoffs?
No, I wouldn't be surprised if Boston went on a heater in the playoffs. There are degrees to surprise, but
yeah,
but I wouldn't exactly be clutching my chest and fainting over backwards.
No, I would be a little surprised if they won the Eastern Conference.
Yeah,
but it wouldn't.
But I mean, to your point about the Montreal Canadiens, like, we've seen worse constructed teams do it.
Yes.
Right? I mean, Phil Deneau is Patrice Bergeron without the offense.
Well, and this year he's actually bringing it. Phil Deneau's bringing it.
Yeah, this year Patrice Bergeron is Phil Deneau.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I like obviously playing with what's his name there in Los Angeles, the center.
Kopitar,
Anze Kopitar.
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about Antti Ranta.
He's actually played a lot with Trevor Moore this year. Those two have been really good.
Yeah.
Deneau and Moore.
Yeah.
In their, in terms of an all-around game, and Deneau is, finding the net. What's he got? 20? He's
got
20.
over 20 now.
He's got 20.
Yeah. No, but my point with Kopitar was that, like, all of a sudden you've got two sulky, perennial selfie guys.
Yeah.
And so, as a coach, you just go, well, one of you guys get out there and it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And nobody's got to take the tough competition, and nobody's got to, you know what I mean? It's a very beneficial situation for both of them, who are both having offensive resurgent seasons in Phil Deneau and Anze Kopitar. But anyways, going back to goaltending for the Boston Bruins, obviously their battery of goaltenders has gotten it done in the regular season. How do you, if you could make a prediction, I feel so bad asking this because goaltending is like the most unpredictable position, but
one that I don't know a lot about. But
yeah, well, that would hardly make you unique in this world, Ken.
Right.
But like, if you were to make a prediction on the goaltending battery in the playoffs, do you think that, like, it will be sufficient to get them through?
Oh yeah. I think it would be sufficient, because I think they're good enough that I mean, this year they've been lights out.
Yeah.
I mean, so does the moment become too big for them in the playoffs? Mm-hmm. I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're those guys, and Swayman in particular. I mean, he's replacing a legend, and the moment hasn't been too big for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he got sent down to the minors only because Tuukka Rask came back.
The legend came back.
Yeah, and
then the legend couldn't replace Swayman.
Right, exactly. Well, the legend couldn't stand up. That was the problem. The legend,
metaphorically and physically, the legend couldn't stand up.
But I mean, when Swayman got sent to the minors, it had nothing. It had absolutely nothing to do with
with
the way
Swayman.
he was playing. It had everything to do with, oh, we can send you to the minors without putting you on waivers, and our guy's coming back, and we want to see if he can play.
Yeah.
But the moment there have been no moments that have been too big for Jeremy Swayman this year.
I forget who they were playing. I was watching some Bruins the other day, and Swayman let in a goal, but right before letting in the goal, he was clearing his crease. He was giving it to a guy in the small of the back with his blocker.
Yeah.
Anyways, it wasn't because he was clearing the crease that he let in the goal, but it was just there was a tic-tac-toe play. I think it was a penalty kill that the Bruins were on. Anyways, either way, the thing is that, like, look, goaltender interference is a hugely unpredictable thing. I
have totally given up on it.
But I'll tell you
given up on what's
rule.
goalie interference and what isn't. When a goal gets challenged, I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea.
It's probably Alain Vigneault that's judging the goaltender interference, and he's just up there in the booth going, one flip, baby. Remember when he had Roberto Luongo and Corey Schneider, and they'd ask him who was starting? He'd say, one flip, baby.
One flip.
Yeah. But one part of goaltender interference that I think is interesting is that if a goalie is out of the crease, the player has to initiate contact. And if a player is in the crease, any contact, even initiated by the goaltender.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's got that gumption, let's call it, to be giving it to somebody who's kind of, encroaching on that crease means that he's not going to have any issues running into somebody who's in the crease. Like sometimes some goalies, you see them and they instinctively avoid the player that's in their crease.
Yeah.
And it's almost a detriment to them, because what you should be doing, and I'm not advocating for like diving or anything like that, but you should be hitting them. If they're in your crease and you're going side to side and they're hindering your movement, you should be hitting them and saying, hello, this is my space, right? So I think that bodes well for playoff play when that area in front of the net often becomes much more crowded.
Right. Yeah.
Anything more you want to say about the Boston Bruins, or do you want to move on to the Nashville Predators?
No, not really. I mean, the Bruins are well coached, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got for the past decade the best line in the world.
Bruce Cassidy called guys like me a bunch of nerds, but good nerds.
Is that what he said?
Did you see that quote? He goes, oh, we got a bunch of nerds upstairs putting together new numbers for us all the time. And he goes, I don't mean like that. Like, they're good nerds. They're good nerds. This is a few weeks ago. It was pretty funny.
That is pretty good. That is pretty good.
Yeah, no, they're extremely well coached. I was surprised when they fired Claude Julien.
Yeah.
As to how well balanced Bruce Cassidy is, in the sense that it's like he didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater of Claude Julien's team. Like, they're still recognizable. Like, Claude Julien's stamp is still on that team. Yeah. But they're just a little bit more modern.
Yep.
Where it counts.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he coached Washington. He was very good in the minors, then got the job in Washington. Yeah. It didn't go well. He wasn't prepared for it.
A lot of coaches had to eat humble pie before they...
And then he had to go back to the minors. Yeah. He went back to the minors, and now he's much better for it.
I wonder that about Ducharme as well. A lot of coaches have to take a big slice of humble pie their first go around the NHL.
Geez, I wonder, though, if you get another chance after that.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It is.
I mean, George Kingston was the first coach of the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah.
And they lost 300 games in their first year, which isn't possible, but they did. Because they lost so bad. They lost some of the games so bad that they actually counted it as 2. Yeah. And
have to count them as 6.
Yeah, and I mean, he was, I mean, I don't know if he was a good coach or not, but we were never going to find out again.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's a privilege.
Yeah.
Nashville Predators 2 years ago looked like they were about to do a rebuild. Then last year, they also looked like they were about to do a rebuild.
Yeah.
And then they decided, no, let's just be good instead. And then this year have been good again. And the thing is that during that time, they have let go of a few pieces that would
big pieces
indicate a rebuild. Yes.
Yeah, Victor Arvidsson
and
Kelly Yarncroke.
Yarncroke, I wasn't even thinking of. But what's his name that went to Philadelphia?
Ryan Ellis.
Yeah. They've let go of a few very big pieces that would have bode well for a team that wants to actually win. But What do you attribute to the team's success right now? You wrote an article about them at the beginning of the year.
Okay. I don't even remember that, but
this guy's forgotten more about hockey than
I've never gotten that. I've never understood how that's a good thing.
Expression,
I've never understood how that's a good thing. This guy's forgotten more about hockey than you know. That's not good. That's just not good.
So then how would you say that we balance out now?
Yeah,
I know much more than him.
Like I know who won the Stanley Cup last year. Has he forgotten that already?
Okay, well, you wrote an article about the Nashville Predators.
It's coming back to me. Yep.
And you wrote an article about specifically with Duchesne and Johansson and
Philip Forsberg.
Philip Forsberg, exactly. And so I'm wondering, now that we've got a full season, because when you wrote that they were 10 or 15 games in, and it's kind of like, well, that's great, but it could just be a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm wondering now what you attribute to the team's success.
Well, wonder no longer. I mean, a lot of things. I mean, they let
I couldn't wait another minute of that wondering.
That's right. They lose Kalle Yarncroke in the expansion draft, right?
Right.
Everybody's like, what? And David Poile goes, well, we got this kid named Tanner Jeannot.
Right. Yeah.
And Tanner Jeannot is going to be a Calder Trophy finalist this year.
You picked him for the Calder, didn't you?
I might have. I forget more about hockey than everybody knows. So maybe I did. Maybe I may have.
Yeah.
So like the guy scores, he fights, he plays physical, he's tough, he can play him in all situations.
Yeah.
But I think to me, the key to the Nashville Predators is who's having career years on that team.
Everyone.
Well, Matt Duchene's having a career year.
Yeah.
Philip Forsberg's having a career year.
Yeah.
Ryan Johansson's having a career year.
Yeah.
Roman Yossi's having a career year.
Roman Yossi's having a historic
Yossi's having an epic year.
Yeah.
UC Saros is having a career year. I mean, it's coming together where it didn't before.
Yeah.
We kept waiting for Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson to prove they were number one centers in the NHL. Well, together they kind of are now. You know what I mean? Matt Duchene's got 40 goals.
Yeah.
Ryan Johansson is scoring again and looking confident and playing really, really well. Philip Forsberg, who's picked a great year to be in a contract year, has been excellent for them. And to me, I actually talked to John Hines about this, and this is probably the story you're referring to.
This is the article I'm referring to.
Yeah, and he basically said, they basically came to him and said, look, it was like the old coach-player push and pull, right?
Yeah.
We don't like the way you're using us. And the coach is like, well, I don't like what you're doing out there. So basically what he did was he started the year with a clean slate with those guys.
Yeah.
So there was no biases, nothing from the previous year, nothing. And he said, okay, look, this is what you want. You want to be put in this position. You want to be put in these situations. I'm putting you there.
Yeah.
I'm putting you there. But you got to prove you can stay there.
It's very impressive. Like, it's very impressive because, just from being an alive human being, as we both are, how many times has somebody said, let's wipe the slate clean, and you think, I don't think you meant that.
Yeah.
I don't think that you meant clean. I think you meant, let's suck it up for a little while, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that he was able to say, like, let's wipe the slate clean, and actually was able to create a clean slate with those guys, that is very impressive to me in terms of his people skills. And I wonder if he would mediate discussions between myself and my 2-year-old.
Oh, okay. Your 2-year-old was... When I came, your 2-year-old was running around the other person's yard, and your wife was just sort of waiting for her to get in the car. And then the last thing she said to me was, I'm going to be here for a while. So you could use those. You could definitely use those mediation skills with her.
Yes.
No question.
Yeah. Before we move on with the Nashville Predators, just a reminder, subscribe, kencampbell.substack.com. Check out Hockey Unfiltered on YouTube if you want the clips of these episodes. And if you want the full episodes, then you've got to go over to the Hockey Podcast Network on YouTube. And we're probably going to start doing some live stuff on the Hockey Podcast Network. So that's worthy of a subscription. Yep. And of course, don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just, I'm doing my due diligence here. Due diligence. Oh, very nice.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
One thing I forgot to say about the Nashville Predators is Mikhail Grandland. He's been a huge part of all of this. He's been a huge part of this because now Duchesne's playing the wing a lot more.
Yeah.
And he's playing with, I think he's playing with Forsberg and Grandland.
Yeah.
And I mean, Grandland has been very, very good for them.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see because they play, like if it ends the way it is now, I think they play Calgary in the first round. And
right.
They just played last night and Nashville won in a shootout, took a 2-0 lead early, and then Calgary battled back. It was a great game. I think they play again like next week.
Yeah.
So that'll be a nice way to set things up for the playoffs.
Yeah.
That'll be a really good series. That'll be one of those ones where you got to watch. You have to watch.
I was trying to figure out if UC Saros, if Roman Josi could break 100 points, and they have a very tough schedule. They've got some tough sledding in the next little while. Calgary twice, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Colorado, I think, is in the mix. Yeah. Anyways, they've got a very tough schedule coming up, and I went, maybe not. They've got their last game of the year is Philadelphia. And I thought, well, maybe he'll do 12 in Philadelphia. They got to give him some primary and secondary assists on a few of those goals.
Right.
So speaking of UC Saros, who I almost mistook for Roman Josi, because talking is hard, okay? Like, you don't realize how many mistakes you make speaking until you speak into, a microphone for an hour. And you're just like, well, I screwed that up pretty bad now.
That one really came out of my butt. Yeah, that was good.
So UC Saros is the 5th best goalie for goals saved above expected. So meaning that he is, those are the amount of goals he'd save against a statistical model of what a league average goalie is. He is the 8th best goalie for save percentage this year. So he's in the mix for excellent goaltending. And now, if I would say just from kind of like my watching him, I would knock him up a few notches on those lists because I don't think that he's getting the defensive help that some of those other fellas are getting on the list. Now, the goal saved above expected is supposed to negate defense, but it does a so-so job of it. You know what I mean? No stat is perfect.
No
stat is perfect, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay. But listen, we've seen teams go very far on the strength of one stellar defenseman and one extremely hot goalie. And of course, I think about Ottawa, the Ottawa Senators, when Craig Anderson just said, "Hey, everybody, remember me?"
Yeah, and Erik Karlsson,
And Erik Karlsson said, "Hey, everybody, remember
2017?
me?"
2017, yeah.
Yeah. That was an excellent playoff run. I really loved watching that. And Craig Anderson's such a fun goalie to watch. Anyways, and of course, the Montreal Canadiens last year where Price and Weber just clearly shook hands and said, "Okay, so we're doing this?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you've seen teams do those incredible runs based on essentially the model of UC Saros and Roman Josi and other people playing fine. How surprised would you be on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most surprised, if the Nashville Predators wound up winning the Stanley Cup?
Probably 8.5.
You'd be that surprised, eh?
Yeah, I'd be pretty surprised.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'd be pretty surprised.
Yeah.
Although their path to the final or their path through the Western Conference is not going to be as tough as anybody's path in the Eastern Conference.
I don't know. Like, we were just talking about how they might be playing Calgary in the first round.
Right. Yeah.
That's going to be a tough team to play.
Yeah.
And then presumably you'll be facing Colorado at some point.
Well, but if they face Calgary, that means they're going in with the Pacific Division.
Yeah, but I'm just saying their path through the West.
Yeah, but still, so you play Calgary in your first series, and then you're playing either Edmonton or LA in the second round.
Yeah. That reminds me of Montreal actually last year.
Yeah.
Played Toronto, a tough series.
Yeah.
Then swept Winnipeg. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Played another tough series against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you're right. Like, it's not going to be as hard as, Carolina. We're talking to Don Waddell in a little bit. They're playing every single horrific matchup that could possibly be concocted.
Yeah.
In order to get to the Stanley Cup final. Yeah. U18 start in Germany in a couple of days. What are you watching for that?
Well, what am I watching? I mean,
is there a few names maybe that come to mind?
Connor Bedard's going to wreck this tournament. Like, he's just going to wreck this tournament.
Yeah.
Like last year,
over under on 100.
He had 7 goals and 14 points in 7 games.
Right.
Last year.
Yeah.
What's he going to do this year after he's already scored 50 goals in the Western Hockey League as a 16-year-old?
Forget the Western Hockey League. Forget what he did last year. In the World Juniors, he put up
5 points in 2 games.
5 points in 2 games.
Yeah.
Like, I've got, I told you about this last night. Like, I've got a goalie student who she is playing AA and up 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think that means when she plays in her age group?
Right. It's
a joke. She's competitive at AA and up 2 years.
But the funny thing is
so he's dominating up 2 years.
This ain't even his age group still.
Right.
Still, he could play in this tournament next year.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the fact that he was able to dominate the World Juniors and now he's going to get dropped down a level, it's incredible.
Well, and it'll be interesting because, Michkov won't be playing.
Right.
Matvey Michkov won't be playing because of the sanctions against Russia.
Yeah.
So they're not even in this tournament.
Right.
Adam Fantilli's going to be on this team.
Yeah.
And that will be really interesting.
Yeah.
That would be so cool if they played those 2 guys together.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That would be almost the Lemieux Gretzky
of the under 18s. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's what I'm watching out for. I mean, Canada typically hasn't really put a lot of, Canada's always put more stock in the Ivan Holinka tournament before the year starts.
Yeah.
Because they can have all their best players, right?
Right.
This tournament, it's all guys whose teams didn't make the playoffs in the CHL.
Right.
So, and luckily the Regina Pats were terrible this year and missed the playoffs despite having the best player in junior hockey, which is Connor Bedard.
Right.
So he's going. So I mean, they don't usually put a lot of stock into this tournament, but they did last year because it was in the summer and they were again able to use all their best players.
Yeah.
This year I think it'll be really interesting because I think a lot of eyes will be on Connor Bedard to see what he can do against a year ahead of his draft class. Yeah. Like, he's still not, I mean, most of the kids in this year's tournament will be draft eligible this year, and he and Fantilli will be draft eligible next year, and they could end up being the 2 most dominant players in the tournament.
Yeah. I remember when we had Connor Bedard on this podcast, feels like many, many moons ago.
Yeah.
And his team was already struggling. And his response was, well, I guess I just need to score more.
Yeah.
and he did.
And he did. He did. It was crazy because once he went to the World Juniors, it was insane what he did. Yeah. Like, he had the 5 points in the World Juniors. Then he came back. I think he had 4 goals in his first game back.
Yeah.
I think I wrote it down the other day, and he had something including the World Juniors, he had 47 goals and 75 points in 47 games.
Wow.
It was insane what he did.
Wow.
And in his last game of the year, he needed 5 points to get to 100. I think he got to 101. He had 96.
Yeah.
He went out and got 3 assists and 2 goals.
Yeah.
Why
wouldn't you?
He was at 49. He ended up at 51.
The thing that used to, well, it still does bother me, but I just don't hear this as much. I remember when Nikita Sherbak was kind of knocking on the door of the Montreal Canadiens organization, and there's rumors that that his off-ice habits were not all that they should be. And I remember this guy in media, and I won't, of course, mention who, but saying basically, well, if I was that close, I would just work hard and make the NHL. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, yeah, but you're not that close. Like, you don't know what you've never been that close. I don't profess to understand what it would be like to be that close, and the different things. And so it's just seemed like a very bizarre statement to make. But some people just do seem to have that ability to just turn around and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to do a little bit better. Yeah. And Bedard seems to always have that ability that every time that you think that he's kind of reached some sort of plateau or some sort of a peak, he just goes, you know what? No, let's do a little more. Why not?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not an option for most people.
Right.
Like most of us you're just schlubs. We've done our best, and for
left
him,
it all out there.
And for him, he goes, all right, you'll reach 100. Okay, why not? Yeah,
I think
might as well.
What I wonder about next year is, whether or not he gets bored. First of all,
he should.
He might.
Well,
I think he's going to be 100. He's going to be 150 points. I saw it with John Tavares.
Yeah,
in his last year.
Yeah, that was the rumor about Shane Wright this year.
Before he got traded to London down the stretch, he looked like a player who was bored.
Yeah.
Bored of that level of competition, bored of not winning, and like this is a team like Regina's been not good, so it'll be interesting to see how he approaches next year. I think he's going to get 150 points.
Yeah.
I think he's good for 150 points next year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, like junior trades often like blockbusters are not uncommon in junior.
No, they're not, especially if he's playing for Regina's out of it at the trade deadline, and you can end up getting a boatload because this is the guy that puts you over the top.
Yeah.
Like in junior hockey, they trade, like, it's like nobody owns
7-year-olds.
Well, yeah, nobody owns their own draft pick. It's like, okay, 3 years ago we traded our first round pick to you, and now, and we were good then, and now we're not, and you're good, so you're going to trade that back to us. And you know what I mean? Like, and they end up trading for guys, I mean, in the 2025 draft. Well, 2026 draft. Well, that's 4 years from now. Yeah, that's a kid who's 12.
Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
Who's playing, hockey somewhere for the Marlies or for the, Delta or the, whatever.
The junior Canadians.
Yeah, the junior Canadians or whatever. And he's going to end up playing for this. He's going to end up being this pick.
Hey, Joe from the Markham Rangers. Guess what?
Yeah. You don't know this yet.
Yeah, you don't know this yet.
And nobody else does either. But yeah, so I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he approaches next year, because I mean, I actually was kind of surprised that he was on this team, because I thought they would just keep him for the World Juniors.
Yeah.
Because, so now it's good now because he's basically just extending his season by a couple of weeks. So it's like he would be playing in the playoffs anyways, right? So this kind of replaces him playing in the Western Hockey League playoffs.
Yeah.
Because, this season just ended on Sunday, and I think they left on Monday. I think they left like the next day for this tournament that starts Friday.
Yeah.
Play USA in the first game. That's going to be it. That's going to be a must watch.
Yeah, no kidding.
That'll be a really good game.
Yeah.
So it won't be that bad in as much as it's just going to be a couple more weeks on a season, which most guys are going to have anyways.
Yeah.
So and we'll see him in the world. Obviously, I'm pretty certain we'll see him in the World Junior.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Put him in the World Championship too. Why not?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Well, because it's just too much. It's too much hockey. He's got to have...
He's young.
I know he's young, but he's got to have time to train, and he's got to have time to rest. But who knows? He could definitely handle that level of competition.
By lighting up all those old geezers? Cool.
Should have been on the Olympic team this year.
I think you're right.
Absolutely should have been on the Olympic team.
They got eliminated because they couldn't score.
Right. Because they realized at some point, hey, Kent Johnson, you're really good, and we haven't played you much, but go out and get us a goal right now because we're desperate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
So.
Yeah. That was just, that was a disappointing
outing
to watch.
It was. It really was. Yeah.
All All right. Do you want to get on to the Don Waddell interview?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right.
Anything else to talk about?
We'll circle back at the end of the interview and chat a little bit about the Hurricanes.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, hockey fans, feel the action on the ice like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up the points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply. And joining us today is current Carolina Hurricanes general manager, former Atlanta Thrashers general manager, but most of us probably know Don Waddell as the former defenseman for the Los Angeles Kings. Don Waddell with us. Don, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Ken. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I did mention that because I do want to take you back a little bit, and I want to ask you, how close did you come to making the U.S. Olympic team in 1980?
Well, I played a lot of games. So I was at the sports festivals for 2 years and broke my leg at the second sports festival in 79. Yeah. I went back to Northern Michigan University, played a few games, and then rejoined the team in, I believe it was late October, early November, and was with the team through the Christmas tournament, which there I got hurt again with the knee injury and was sent home at that time. So, you never know how things are going to work out, but certainly as you look back at it, it was a great experience. And, when we had a trip to Europe with that team, so you really get to know the players, and, you had players from mostly from Minnesota, mostly from Boston. And so it was an interesting group of guys, but they came together and, obviously very excited when they were able to win the gold medal.
Well, it's funny because Herb Brooks, who coached the team, was one of the last cuts of the 1960 team as well. And I remember reading something about how they were watching the gold medal game, and his dad said to him, "Well, it looks like they cut the right guy." Savage. But maybe they did cut the right guy. Maybe they didn't. I know your numbers were outstanding. You were for people who don't realize it, Don was a very, very good offensive defenseman. Like you had good numbers in college. You scored 95 points one year in the IHL. I mean, you had it going offensively, didn't you, Don?
Well, I was fortunate in college. I played with Tom Laidlaw. He was my defense partner, and I think he scored 1 or 2 goals in 4 years. And he was the defensive my body protector back there, and so that got me going. And I was fortunate. I played with some good players, good teams, able to win some championships. And as I look back in the career, yes, I played 1 NHL game in January of 81, and it's one game that I'll remember. And so I've been very fortunate to be able to stay in this sport at this level, and someday I'll wake up and have to get a real job.
So far, you've managed to avoid that, Don. And speaking of, staying in the game, I remember you told me a story, and I can't remember the exact details, but, talking about your transition into, management, and at first it was player coach. And I remember you were telling me the story about how one night you said to your wife, do you feel like going to a hockey game? And she said, sure. And you said, well, that's good because I'm playing.
It was Sunday morning. Rick Dudley called me. I guess they had a bunch of injuries, had a brawl in the ski the night before. I was living in Toledo, Ohio, and called me like 9 o'clock in the morning for a 1 o'clock game and said, hey, I'm really in a big pickle. Is there any way you can play today? I hadn't been on the ice in a whole year. And I remember walking the house. It was, an hour and a half drive to go up there. And I said to my wife, I said, "Do you want to go to a hockey game today?" She goes, "Sure." "Where?" I said, "Up in Flint." And so we moseyed around for a few minutes. I said, "Well, by the way, I'm going to play in this game." What? So that started to come back, and the rest was good from there.
What were you doing at the time, Don?
So I own a portable toilet business, Porta Johns. Yeah, it's a story that lots of fun about this job. And so the funny thing was, that was a Sunday, and I had this business going, and it was going really good. Wednesday, and I wasn't planning to come back. The team was playing in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was playing for the Flint team, and Rick said, "Is there any way you can play?" I said, "Well, the good thing, Rick, on Wednesdays, I do my routes on the western part of Ohio." So I said, "Yeah, I can make the game." And so I drove to the game in my big pump truck with my rubber boots on, walked to the locker room, played the game, got my truck, and drove home that night. So I did that for about 3 weeks until I could hire some people to run the business for me. And then I finished the year out with Rick.
That's funny, because then that sort of was your conduit into management, right, Don? Then you started, you were managing in, I think, Toledo and Flint, and then Orlando, and like you put your time in the International Hockey League for sure.
Yeah, I went back and decided the following year to be Rick's player assistant coach, and then he left after the 87-88 year, and then so we got named coach and GM in 88, 89. 89-90, we became the Rangers farm team. And then after that, I went to San Diego for 5 years, Orlando for a couple of years. So, I kind of got a history once I started going to San Diego that I only go to warm weather cities. I had to stop in Detroit for years, assistant manager to Kenny. That's and right. won a Stanley Cup. So It was worth the trip. And then obviously for the next 12, 13 years.
Nice. Well, let's move on to a little closer to now. And Don, I was looking at the standings in the Eastern Conference, and I started to look back to every year previous. And one of the things that I've came up with is this will likely be the first time in NHL history that every playoff team in a conference or in the same conference or the same division is going to have 100 points. Like, have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, this is crazy. Every night we talk about it every morning. You scoreboard to watch, but I don't even know what we're watching because every team, like you said, so many good teams, and you're going to get in the playoffs, and both not taking anything away from the West, but right now in the East, to get to the Stanley Cup Finals, you're going to have 3 hell of a tough series to win. Yeah. So, we're excited about it being in our position. We're just trying to finish this season out as strong as we can and get ready for that postseason.
But you don't even know, like for the longest time, it seemed like you knew you were going to be in that one spot, but now you've got the Rangers breathing down your neck. You don't know if you're playing Pittsburgh. You don't know if you're playing Boston. You don't know if you're playing Washington. How do you guys approach that? I mean, obviously you do what got you where you are, but how do you guys prepare for that?
Yeah, it's just, one thing about Rod Brindamore, our coach, is he doesn't worry too much about the other team. He'll make our players prepared for penalty kill and power play, but we more focus on how we want to play. We think if we play the way that we're capable and what we call the right way, that we don't have to worry so much about other teams. Special teams being different than that. So, we're approaching it. We're trying to win every night, and that's our goal. And regardless who we're playing, and the chips will fall at the end. The Rangers obviously have a heck of a hockey team. I think they have 3 shutouts in a row right now, playing well. So that part we can't control. We can only control what we do. And our goal is to try to win every game. We have 5 left, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Don. Obviously, at this time of the year, I mean, injuries and people who are banged up are a huge factor. We just found out yesterday that Freddie Anderson will be out at least a week. Jordan Stahl's day to day. Jesperi Kotkaniemi's day to day. How are things looking on that front?
Yeah, both Stahl and Jesperi are going to be fine. They're potentially even play tomorrow night. We got a home game and then we go on the road. Freddie's going to be a little bit. He's back here. We were on that trip. His movement's good. And MRI done negative. So it's just a matter of how he feels here. So, we got the weekend. Like I said, we're going on the road. We'll keep him back here, let him do his treatment, do everything that he needs to do. It's not whether he plays 3 or 4 games before the season ends. It's more if try to get him ready for game 1 of that first round. So that's what we're focused on.
Yeah. So, and I mean, you did pick up Antti Raanta in the offseason after trading Alex Nedeljkovic. What's the level of comfort with a guy like that?
Well, he's played really well as late. He beginning of the year, Freddie was going so well. He didn't play as many games as probably we thought. We had a really good schedule at the beginning of the year where we didn't have any back-to-backs. So when he finally got to play, he started off good, then got hurt a little bit, was slow, but then I think I'm not a big stat guy with these type of things, but I think in his last 7 or 8 games, I think he's only had 1 regulation loss or maybe 2. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy that is going to get a chance to play these games, and we feel good that going into playoffs, if Freddie's not ready, that we have a very capable guy and Raanta that can start and win hockey games for us. So we're everybody. I know everybody panics and looks at it, but we feel like we're in a pretty good spot, and it's more up to our team. If we play as we were capable of, I think the rest will take care of itself.
Don, I think the fact that I follow some people on Twitter and that cover your team, and I think it's a good thing that people started to lose their minds a little bit when this news came down. It was like, people, that means people are engaged. And I mean, I think the one thing that people need to know is that you have a very engaged fan base, don't you?
Yeah, no, they'll, gone 4 years now making the playoffs. Our fans they're very passionate. We've been selling out a lot of nights this year. We just got through putting our playoff strips on sale to our season ticket holders. We capped it at 14,000. We sold every one of those. We want to keep some individual tickets for people to be able to experience the playoff hockey. So our fans have been engaged. It's kind of fun to hear some of the chatter out there. But on the other side, I always tell people, don't worry about the things we can't control. Let's worry about the things we can control. And that's about getting our hockey team prepared to play the best they possibly can.
Right. And that goes right back to, when I covered hockey for the Toronto Star, I did, Carolina's run to the Stanley Cup in 2006. And it goes right back to that. That fan base was, I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about what a playoff game looks like in Carolina, because it's a pretty unique experience. I know that, kids are playing ball hockey in the parking lot. There's almost like this like sort of tailgating aspect to it all. Like, what's it like?
Yeah, the tailgating, we're the number 1 tailgating city in the National Hockey League. And one of the big reasons is, we have a 68 acres of parking lots around the building. So, people get out of here. We had a meeting yesterday. If our first game will probably be either Monday or Tuesday. And so you'll have a midweek game probably starting around 7 or 7:30, depending on TV. And we'll open gates at 11 o'clock that morning, because even though it's a work day, we know we'll have thousands and thousands of people come out early for tailgating. So we'll be prepared for it. But, we had last weekend, we had a Sunday game a week ago Sunday at 6 o'clock, and it was a beautiful day here in Raleigh. And by 10:30, we had over 2,000 people on property. And by 3 o'clock, we estimate someplace around 6,000 or 7,000 people. So they weren't coming to get into the game early. They came to enjoy the outside weather and the tailgate. And like you said, the kids play ball hockey. We set up all kinds of inflatables on the property. We have food trucks. we have vendors around. So we make it it's the NFL captured this very well. The NFL, everybody talks about the NFL. They play 8 home games. So they make every game an event. It's just not the game. We try to do that as much as we can during the regular season, but certainly even more in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. So you've obviously got a team that's built for the present right now, but you do have a pretty good future down the line. I mean, I was just looking at the Hockey News Future Watch, and I think you guys are ranked 9th, which isn't bad for a team that's had the late picks that you have. I mean, you obviously don't have a first round pick this year. How are you feeling about the prospect list with the likes of Scott Morrow and Jack Drury and some of the guys you have coming up the pike here?
Yeah, we really feel good. As you said, we had the high pick 4 years ago where we won the lottery, went from 11-2 to get Svechnikov. Yeah. A couple years ago, we made a trade with Toronto and ended up with their pick to get Seth Jarvis at 13. So we've been fortunate to be able to add some of those type of players, and they came right immediately to our team. But when you look at, we got a goalie that we just called up here, Peter Kochkopf. He came over from Russia because of the situation in Russia earlier. We didn't think we were going to get him this year. He went to the American League. He's 13-1-1 in the American League. Now he's going to get a chance to play some games up here this weekend. And as you mentioned, Jack Drury, if we'd have ran through any kind of injuries, Jack Drury would have got more games this year, but we know he's going to be prepared to play and make our team next year. Scott Morrow stay in school for another year. Very high on Scott. We have a couple young kids, Gunler, that came over this year. He's playing right now in the American League. We feel good about where we're at. We had a lot of draft picks too. 2 years ago, I think we had 13 picks. And I think 11 last year. We kind of loaded up on some second, third round picks through different means. And, as we know with the draft, there's no sure things, but the more darts you throw at the dartboard, the better chance you have to get some players out there. So we feel like we're in pretty good shape moving forward.
Yeah, you did have a lot of picks, and as you say, I mean, you've got to hit on those picks, and it looks like you have. So that's a great thing. Just one last thing, Don. Scoring is going bonkers now in the NHL. It's way up, and there's probably a lot of different reasons for that. I don't know. Like I'm wondering. Like, are we? I was thinking about this last night, and I'm just thinking. Are we entering the golden age of talent in the NHL? Like, I mean, that's a part of it, I assume. What are you seeing out there that can attribute to this this goals explosion that we're seeing this year?
Right. There's no doubt the talent level is one thing, but I really think the condensed schedule. With so many games where you have 3 games in 4 nights, 5 games in 8 nights. It's just. I think it opens up for. I'm not saying. I think the goalies are as good as they've ever been, but when you're playing that many games, and especially in that position, I think there's a lot more wear and tear on you. There's also been a run of injuries this year with some key goaltenders throughout the league. So, empty net goals I know are way up. From years past. Now the big thing is getting your goalie out of there as early as you can, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But I think it's a combination of all those things that we just mentioned, and give these scores. I mean, there's some guys that don't need a lot of chances to score. I think I don't know. I heard yesterday how many 100-point guys we're going to have in the league. It's pretty remarkable. But I think it also, as you start off, the talent level in the league, I think is as high as it's been throughout the history of the league.
That's funny. I mean, you mentioned the empty net goals, which is a good point, because I go through the summaries and I marvel at how many games where I see, okay, empty net goal, and then the other team comes back and scores, and then they get another empty net goal. You know what I mean? So it's like it's working and it's not working, but it's making for some exciting hockey. I've ever since the lockout, I've loved the game and where it's going and the entertainment value of it. But this year, I think it's been really off the charts, and I think the condensed schedule is a big part of it too, because you are going to be playing your younger guys because they're the ones who are going to have the legs, so they're the ones who are going to have more opportunity as well. So it makes for an interesting time. Can't wait for the playoffs to start. Can't wait to to see the Carolina Hurricanes and whoever they play, whether it's the Pittsburgh Penguins or the Boston Bruins or whoever it is. But good luck down the stretch here, Don, and good luck in the playoffs. And thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
No, always a pleasure, Ken, speaking with you, and we'll look forward to catching up with you sometime, maybe during the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see you in a press box somewhere.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Don.
Well, thanks for setting that up, Ken. That was a lot of fun having Don on the podcast. Seems like an absolute prince. Immediately sent me a message after he got off the podcast recording and said, thanks for setting that up. As if I was the one with the major inconvenience today.
Yeah. I wonder how the Montreal Canadiens feel if they think he's a prince.
That's a very good point. I think I don't know. They're probably laughing right now at the.
I don't know if they're laughing. I mean, they ended up. It ended up being Kotkaniemi for Christian Dvorak, and Christian Dvorak, despite many people, basically predicting he would be the second coming of, I don't know, Cam Neely, hasn't quite been that.
It was Mark Messier when you were on the Habs Edition podcast.
Oh, was it? Yeah. So, I wasn't sure where all of that love came from.
It was so bizarre. Like the thing that I saw about Dvorak that was so funny was, he'll be almost as good as Philip Deneau defensively, but way better offensively. How bad do you think Deneau is defensively?
Yeah. Wrong on both, it turns out.
Yeah. Nope and no.
Yeah. So, Kotkaniemi.
I mean, we don't have to get into it, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that that wasn't exactly Don Waddell's playbook.
No, it wasn't. It was completely the owner's playbook.
Yeah.
And he was getting it back at the Canadiens for the offer sheet they gave to Sebastian Aho, which, as it turns out, was a pretty good offer, was a pretty team-friendly offer sheet.
Oh, they did Carolina a huge favor.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
Yeah. There was a meme.
They did him a solid. They did him a complete solid.
There was a meme on Habs Twitter, which was like Don Waddell calling up Mark Bergevin and saying, "Hey, I'm having trouble getting this kid signed. Can you just do me a favor and shoot him an offer sheet for this?"
Yeah.
And Mark goes, "Yeah, okay, no problem, man."
Yeah. I'll do it.
That's how they got it signed.
Yeah.
So
Carolina, they're in tough. Everybody's in tough in the East.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see. I mean, Freddie Anderson's out for at least a week.
Yeah.
It looks like that coincides with the end of the season. So I doubt if, judging by the way he was talking, I don't think we're going to see him in the regular season.
Yeah.
The rest of the regular season. So,
well, if you're planning on a deep playoffs run, then it behooves you to take that extra time to just, make sure that the rehab is 150%. You know what I mean?
And which Freddie Anderson is going to show up.
So
which one?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Right? That's the question.
That's it. And that without generalizing too much, that will probably dictate how far this team goes in the playoffs.
So I had two students that put up an absolute stinker of a game. They're both on the same team, and they both got pulled. And I had a long chat with the head coach afterwards of the team, and basically what he said, and I think is completely right, I completely agreed with, was none of the goals that those kids let in were bad goals, but sooner or later you got to stop some of them.
You need to stop.
You need to stop some of those goals, even if it's a good goal, even if it's a breakaway or something like that. You gotta sooner or later you gotta just say, I'm able to get that little level ahead of what is acceptable and get to what is good.
Yeah.
And that to me it epitomizes essentially Frederik Andersen's playoff career, which is a lot of the goals that he's let in, you can hum and you can haw and you can say, well, maybe this and that, but at the end of the day, you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
You gotta stop him.
Well, there's no hemming and hawing over some of the goals he let in too.
No, there's been some real stinkers.
You can't, those soul crushers just
There's been at least 3 where he's gone into his VH, which is like, one knee next to the post and one knee down.
Yeah.
Like way too early, which is a position that should only be played when the puck's around the goal line. Way too early, and the guys just put it through his legs. Like there's been some weird cognitive issues there. But he could be good. His numbers are excellent this year. Ilya Sorokin, he's living rent-free in my brain right now. Antti Raanta is got an almost identical save percentage to him right now, although the advanced metrics don't look as good.
Right.
But Don did say that they're comfortable going in with Raanta.
Well, what else is he going to say? What else is we going to say? Yes,
we're screwed.
Yes, I traded Alex Nedeljkovic in the offseason.
Yeah.
And I'm regretting it. No, he's not going to say that. So you are what you are at this time of the season. You're not getting any help.
Yeah.
Freddie Anderson is going, let's put it this way. If Freddie Anderson is going to go on a long playoff run, he's going to have to silence some doubters.
Now,
a lot of doubters.
I look at Carolina though as a team that makes life easy on their goaltenders.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Slavin is did I say it wrong? He gave me a weird look.
No.
Jacob Slavin reminds me of like a Hjalmarsson.
Yeah.
Where he takes, the sort of defensive defenseman and turns it into such an art form.
Right.
And so it's possible that, Frederik Andersen will have the best playoff of his career because he's surrounded by guys like that, as opposed to, Muzzin got hurt the last 2 playoffs for the Leafs.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That was the only guy in the Leafs that you would say could do that play that sort of role.
Play that shutdown.
And even then he was no Jacob Slavin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So you see, I argued myself into a point and out of the point.
That's what all good debaters do, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you want to get out of here?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, don't forget to subscribe to us on the Hockey Podcast Network. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, both our channel and the Hockey Podcast Network's channel. Don't forget to check out kencampbell.substack.com for excellent writing from our good friend Ken Campbell here. And of course, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars are appreciated. Well, really the only way to go.